David also had a film going on, but considering how tightly done that first season was, I can't imagine why Mark's involvement would have diminished.
I think I think the truth of the matter is that the network drove him away.
I think it started way before then.
And well, that's fine.
Honestly,
but I think that David. I think Mark really enjoys being a novelist. I mean, he's an amazing novelist, and I think the truth of the matter is this was a moment in time. This was a creative moment in time. That's all it should have ever been. And it was a business, and it had too much. There was too much. There was too much push and pull and insanity spiraling around him, and I don't think he enjoyed the process.
I have a slightly different perspective. From my perspective, Mark and David both wanted to move on to other projects right away. And no one was really watching things after the first few episodes got written. They were doing American Chronicles and all these other shows. He was trying to secure, David didn't want to do that. He was doing Wild at Heart, a coffee table book, and all these other projects selling stuff to Japan and everything else. They really thought that they could walk away because they're brilliant at what they do. But the cast and crew, the writers, everyone involved really needed to have closer handling for at least another, I would say, year and a half at least, just to secure the scripts and the personnel, and that's not even discounting what was happening with ABC. But
yeah, that may all be true, but I think in the end, I think what Phil says is correct. I mean, if the network wasn't pushing in a certain direction and was allowing them to have the vision. I've been at HBO for 13 years now. That's their specialty. They hire people like Mark and David and say, go. And I've gotten less notes in 13 years from the network than I got in a week, the famous week from the network. So I think there was ultimately this sense of, it's not that they lost interest, because they didn't, but it was just that it's also a thing in this town when you get hot, you want to take advantage of it. But I think that there was a sense of, once the reveal happened, that I don't think they even, and I don't want to speak for Mark and David because they're the ones who need to answer this question. None of us should really even be talking about it, but it's really, my sense of it was that it just was turning into something else, and they were trying to figure out what to do, and it's because it wasn't the show they ever meant it to be in their vision in the first place. Television shows are hard to do, especially when at this level. Nothing had ever quite, I'm not sure any show in history had hit the way this thing had hit. We did 7 episodes and got 14 Emmy nominations. It's unheard of. Now it's not so.
Television has never been written like that.
Yeah, it was just so unique. So I just, I don't know. But what they brought to the world was
no, I think it's
spectacular.
great. I just think that if they could have focused for a bit longer, it would have made all the world a difference.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of the crew definitely felt, and the actors, because it was such a different show, and because it wasn't like everyone was getting scripts all the time. I mean, it was because there was a lot of uncertainty, and they were doing such excellent work. Everyone was doing excellent work, but especially Mark and David. I think, if they could have just focused a little bit more attention on such a unique, beautiful show, it really, and it's nothing against Mark and David. Of course, they wanted to strike while people are being offering them stuff all the time. But, all of us are feeling a little bit of an orphan during, parts of that. We would miss them, and we could have used their guidance a bit more.
Got a question specifically for Gregg. It's a little off topic, but you're also executive producer and director, I believe, on the other crazy, brilliant David Milch's show, John from Cincinnati, which I've always thought had a similar sensibility to Twin Peaks. I'm just wondering if that was ever mentioned as like an influence or a reference point, or if there was anything specific from Twin Peaks that you brought to your experience on John from Cincinnati.
I don't know if it was, Milch is definitely his own creator of a show, so he had something in mind that he knew was going to be, as he said to me when we started, he said, this is either going to be the best show in the history of television, or it might also be the worst. And he honestly didn't know which way it was going to go. So, you know, for me, it did feel very much like it had that Twin Peaks essence to it, but it was also something completely different. I think I knew more what was going on Twin Peaks, definitely at the beginning, than I ever knew on Jump in Cincinnati. I'm still waiting for someone to explain it to me.
Hi, you alluded earlier to conflict not only with the network, but also internal conflict within the creative camp of the show. Being as specific or as general as you like, what can you recommend, or what have you learned based on your experience with this and other shows of managing a situation where you have two or more creative elements that are both critical to the show's success, but they start diverging and they're not necessarily on the same page anymore? How do you manage a situation like that and resolve it so that the project can still be its best?
You know, I think it's to me, it's the best work anywhere is always with a singular vision. I think Mark and David had a singular vision on this show, certainly at the beginning. I'm not sure if they had the same vision towards the end. It doesn't mean either one of them was right or wrong. And maybe they did, but it was just, again, there was other visions that started to seep in. Again, this is why I think HBO shows, and a lot of other shows now that are emulating HBO shows are successful, because you have these strong, singular writers. Without that, it's virtually impossible to do. So when you have two, you have to manage it. It ends up becoming really unwieldy. So, you know, how do you do it? You try to get rid of one or the other.
Yeah, I'll only say Gregg is absolutely correct. You need one singular vision and you need one hill to go over. But, you know, the way I would liken it to is an amazing piece of music. If you are talented and you can read the music, you can play the music, and it can sound beautiful, but the music was written by one person and everybody can follow the notes. You need a singular vision, and everybody needs to be able to follow that vision. If you can't do that, it will never succeed.
Question about the network reaction to the ratings beginning to hemorrhage about halfway through the second season. After it was such a big overnight hit, did you guys try to do any sort of creative CPR to resurrect the ratings once they started to plummet? And what was the cast and crew reaction when that sort of zeitgeist moment started to end?
What I was told to do was clean up the storytelling and make the show a mystery. That's what I was told to do. But it didn't matter what I was told to do. You had two filmmakers who wanted to do what they wanted to do, and they were going to do what they wanted to do, and that's what you hired when you got them. There was nothing more than butting heads at that point. There was a moment in time where it was all happy, and then it just became insanity, and managed insanity. That's from the network perspective.
I don't know if this answers the question specifically, but there was, as much as in the first season the crew went and read the scripts early on, and all we did was talk about it, there was a point in the second season when I literally realized that we weren't doing that anymore. We'd get the script and people would come in and go, I don't really know what to do. The prop guy would come out, I don't get this. What am I supposed to do? I got to get it tomorrow. We're shooting him. I was like, I don't know. We got to go talk to the writers. And it, like that sort of magic, it started to just turn into another grind of a television show where we were all working our butts off just to stay ahead of the game. And I remember going to one of the writers and saying, you know, something's going on here. This is like, you know, the crew's not doing this anymore. And I was told that, don't worry, everything's okay. It wasn't okay. And I felt it. And it was, again, an interesting barometer of things. But people were really disappointed because we loved this show. And I think sometimes the show goes off the rail. Had they given it a third season and a couple of parameters, who knows what would have happened.
But it will remain beautiful speculation in the hearts and minds of many fans. I want to thank all of you for the work that you did bringing this exceptional show to life and for joining us.